All right, the next 15 minutes, absolute banger. I actually uncovered the 6 key reasons why the Gold Coast is so hot right now. The last 2 are probably my personal favorite, in all honesty, but hopefully this adds some value on why this city is pumping. All right, welcome to Buying Gold Coast. This is our very first, well, it's our second episode, but very first deep dive episode. My goal is to try and add about maybe 2 a month would be an absolute goal of mine to really unpack and dive deep on all things Gold Coast, Tweed Coast property and surround. So I'm really excited around today's episode. We are unpacking 6 reasons why the Gold Coast is so hot right now. What are we? We're actually in October. So not just weather. The weather is absolutely cranking, but I'm talking around why the market is so hot right now. Why is Gold Coast fast becoming one of the hottest suburbs and cities in Australia right now, not just for owner-occupiers, but even for investors? I'm actually going to unpack 6 of the biggest reasons why this is the case. So let's get started. Number 1, migration. So post-COVID, here's a good little stat. Post-COVID, from 2022 onwards, we were sitting at around, 2022 prior, we were sitting at around 1.8 to 2% migration levels. Since COVID, post-COVID, it has now jumped migration levels to the Gold Coast to 2.9%. So nearly 3%. So the estimation, if we continue at just this rate at the moment, I'm sure it's going to increase even more, just at current rate in the year 2038, so we're talking what, about 14 years, so a decade from now plus, we're looking at around 1,050,000 people who will call the Gold Coast home conservatively. So to put that into perspective, the amount of people moving here is at an all-time high. The next one I want to say is I call it lifestyle lack. So that post-COVID boom also resulted in people, I called it lifestyle lack because people were craving a better lifestyle. They realized some of the cities they were living in wasn't for them. There was more to life. COVID really produced a good pause in people's lives. So I called it the lifestyle lack, and I think people felt it. And that's why you're going to see a huge migration continually grow. So at the moment, as I said, it's sitting around 2.9%. I wouldn't be surprised if that continues to grow. So my number 1 reason the Gold Coast is so hot right now is migration. Number 2, we are in a landlocked location. So what do I mean by a landlocked location? So if you jump in a helicopter and let's go above the Gold Coast right now. To the east, you've got ocean, and to the west, you've actually got hinterland and mountains and valleys. Beautiful, right? But from a supply point of view, you're actually very landlocked because you can't actually build in those landscapes. So what happens is, as I said, in reason number 1, the migration, there's no enough supply to keep up with the amount of people moving here because, again, you cannot build in the ocean to the east and you can't build in those deep valleys to the west. So we're actually in a very, very landlocked location. So combine that with the 2.9% growth rate that's coming year on year. A question I always ask myself, well, where do all these people actually live? So huge reason why I believe the Gold Coast will continue to stay as a hot market is we are in a landlocked location. So just think of that supply and demand ratio. You cannot build to the east. You cannot build to the west. It's very, very landlocked. Number 3, infrastructure spend. So infrastructure spend is a big one. Here's some numbers I pulled from some data, ABS data, and also articles all around the Gold Coast. Obviously, the 28 Com Games, 18 million was a spend there. 345 million at the Star Casino in Broadbeach. The Light Rail, astronomical numbers getting spent there. The Home of the Arts upgrade up there in Bundall has just been going through another gentrification, which is exciting. 825 mil on the Pac Fair redevelopment. So Pacific Fair Shopping Centre, again, in the Broadbeach precinct. And all of this, remember, all that money not only brings confidence, it also creates jobs. It also creates employment. Like those infrastructure spending and those jobs that need to get done obviously require labor, they require people. So think of that as well. Like, where do all those people need to rent and live during these constructions? Because again, like the light rail, it's not a 6-month project. It's potentially 6+ years. It's been in the pipeline for ages. So was the Comp Games and the Pac Fair redevelopment. They're year projects. Like, they take a long time. So that's again a huge reason why the Gold Coast is so hot right now. There is backed infrastructure spend, not only in the north, not only central, not only southern, not only western Gold Coast, literally the whole Gold Coast has spending going on at the minute. So that should only breed confidence to people who are thinking of either moving here or investing here. It's really exciting when, the government is behind such projects and they're putting money behind it. So really, really exciting. Number 4, lifestyle. Sounds obvious, right? So lifestyle, I really noticed the importance of this one. The demographics that move to a certain area, it only increases or decreases wealth. So for me personally, I grew up in Western Brisbane in kind of a lower socioeconomic kind of pocket. And I loved it. I have nothing against my childhood. I absolutely loved it. And my parents did the best they could. But what I noticed was it was very affordable. A lot of housing commission was around there too. It wasn't, the average wealth in the areas probably wasn't very high. And that's okay. What happens is when more people move to a certain area of a higher wealth bracket, that only pushes not only the demographic up, but it pushes the whole city up in terms of value, because people within the city have more money to spend. And where they spend it? At lifestyle amenities, for example. So what I've noticed on the Gold Coast now, obviously the beaches, free to use, but they are just top notch, like some of the best beaches in the world, in my opinion. But little things like amenities too. Some of my favorites in here I've put, like in terms of lifestyle and where I'm talking why lifestyle brings the wealth barrier up, is like people coming into the city lift the city too. So I remember his name's Adriano Antonini, I think it is. I wrote down the last 15 years, he's a chef. He's been in London, Rome, Dubai. He's opened so many amazing restaurants worldwide. He's opened Tater Bar and restaurant in Nobbies, for example. So it's people like that coming in the city. Labat in Burleigh just got named Queensland's best restaurant. Subtle little Burleigh heads. Kira Beach has been 4 years in the making. It resides now 800 people there. So it's all these key things, the bars, the cafes, the amenities that come with the beach as well. All of that produces, wealthier people to move into the city and people who want an increased lifestyle who can afford it. So at the end of the day, change is sometimes good. And what I notice, you combine change in the city with a really good lifestyle. I mean, that's what people are craving right at the end of the day. So that's a huge one for number 4, lifestyle. Number 5, this one's all about rental pressure. So number 5 is rental pressure. So quick one, if you want to work out rental yield on a property, so it's simply purchase price times 52, so 52 weeks in a year, divided by, rent per week. Sorry, I'll take that back. Rent per week times 52 divided by purchase price will give you an estimated rental yield. Now, big one combined with rental yield is what I like to call vacancy rates. So vacancy rates. Really good website to use, SQM Research. Just type into Google SQM Research and you can type in vacancy rates. You type in any suburb in Australia, you type in any postcode and it'll give you the current vacancy rate. To give you perspective, a balanced vacancy rate sits at around 3%. The Gold Coast, on average, at the moment, there are some suburbs sitting below 1%, some around 1.5% to 2%. So anything below kind of 2% is considered really tight. Anything below 1% is nearly at homeless levels. So what I mean is for every property that comes up, there's, you know, hundreds, if not, 20, 30, 40 people at every rental inspection for one property. So the power, unfortunately for tenants, is in the landlord's favor. So that's putting a lot of rental pressure on the market. There's nowhere to go. Short-term accommodation, the legislation has slightly changed. Look into it for Airbnbs and things like that because of the rental crisis. Parts of the government are going against doing short-term holiday letting. So what that is they're telling people to put those properties out of the short term and put it in more into the long-term rental pool to hopefully ease the pressure and help some of these people move in. So why I say all of this is, again, the rental pressure is very appealing for investors. When investor money comes into a city, it's only a positive. So the rental yields are still strong based off that calculation I gave at the start. If you calculate that and then compare it to some of the other cities in Australia, the rental yield here on the Gold Coast right now, 2024, is still very, very strong. You're nearly at a neutral, if not positive, cash flow market in a very short time. So that's really exciting as a future investor or a current investor. So number 5 for my reason why the Gold Coast is so hot right now is rental pressure. Lastly, number 6. This one I didn't realize is so important to people's lifestyle and the way they live. But number 6, why the Gold Coast is pumping right now, is climate. I was born and bred in Brisbane, as I said, in Western Brisbane. So I'm a Queenslander through and through. I grew up in Queensland, went to school in Queensland. My last career as an athlete was in Queensland. So I haven't really lived anywhere else. It wasn't until I started traveling into other cities and then also doing my job as a buyer's agent, helping so many people move here, that I actually realized the Gold Coast has one of the best climates in Australia, hands down. So why this is super important. As I said, lifestyle lack post-COVID made people realize the importance of mental health and the way they feel on where they live. Your environment controls so much of your daily being and how you feel as a person. And what I noticed is, this is feedback from a lot of people who have moved from, places where it's a little bit colder in Australia, places where there isn't much action or sunlight. They've come up to the Gold Coast and they just feel better. Big reasons. As I said, sun exposure is number 1. We get a lot of sun up here, which equals, so many endorphins and things like that. There's a lot of science behind it. Another one is just the ocean. The ocean is so good for not only clarity of mind, but also when you swim in it, it's good for your skin and things like that. You got the hinterland and the creeks, places like that. And then another one, obviously, is like our winters, you can still swim them. Like I've still swim every winter in the ocean, and people can't believe it. It's so beautiful here. So 365, you're pretty much in a decent climate in comparison to some other cities. Some other cities are good for one season, but really rough in others. Generally speaking, the feedback I get from everyone is the climate up here on the Gold Coast is awesome, produces happier people. And then probably my favorite feedback I get from so many interstate clients and overseas clients who move here is they cannot believe how friendly everyone is. So not only everyone gets up early here and goes to bed a bit earlier than some other big cities, but everyone always comments on how friendly everyone is. And I honestly believe that has something to do with climate and the way mentally they're feeling living in, a very nice climate city. So there's 6 of the biggest reasons why the Gold Coast is so hot right now. So let's go unpack and let's go through them really quickly. Number 1, migration. Number 2, we're in a landlocked location, ocean to the east, hinterland to the west. Number 3 is infrastructure spend. You can even look it up online. There's some really exciting pipeline projects. You can look at that too. Number 4 is lifestyle. So Urban List is a really good website. I always like looking at Urban List. They always highlight some of the best restaurants upcoming, things like that. Sure, TikTok, Instagram, you can find where all the latest bars and cafes are on the Gold Coast now. There's so many new ones opening up. Number 5 was rental pressure. Again, super hard for tenants right now, which I'm very empathetic. If you are a tenant right now, it is tough. But if you're a landlord or a homeowner, you're obviously in a really strong position currently on the Gold Coast. And number 6, one of my favorites, is climate. Purely the relationship between climate and someone's mental health and the way they feel is inevitable that they're going to be happier. And when you're happier, you tell your friends and family around a city, friends and family want to move. Again, migration goes up, supply goes down. It's one big... It's simple when you look at the macro side of it on why the Gold Coast is going like so well right now as a market and as a city. So really exciting. So I really enjoyed unpacking that. Hopefully it adds some value. Share this to someone if you feel maybe they're not on the Gold Coast and they're needing some more convincing to come up here, or maybe you're just someone who wants to promote your city and let everyone know that this is why, or maybe you're just someone who wants to understand your city a bit better too. So hopefully that added value. If it did, let me know. Leave me a comment. And as I said, we'll unpack some of the biggest topics around the Gold Coast, Tweed Coast over the next coming weeks, months, years, just for you. So stay tuned and thanks for listening.